Hi, you're listening to the Böll Europe podcast series on elections in 2025. My name is Joan Lanfranco and I'm the head of communications and outreach at the EU office of the Heinrich-Böll-Stiftung, the German Green Political Foundation. Check out our work on our website eu.böll.org and on the show notes. Subscribe to our channel to receive notifications of new episodes. Today, we focus on Poland. On 1st of June, Karol Nawrocki of the Law and Justice Party, PiS, narrowly won Poland's presidential runoff, dealing a serious blow to Donald Tusk's pro-European coalition government. What does this mean for Polish politics, the EU and the balance of power in Warsaw? In this episode, I talked to my colleague Maciej Makulski, head of Europe and international politics at the Heinrich-Böll-Stiftung office in Warsaw, about the key issues that shape the campaign, voter dynamics, and what Nawrocki's win could mean for Poland's direction, especially when it comes to cohabitation with a government the president-elect strongly opposes. We will also discuss how this tight result reflects deeper divides in Polish society, what style of politics Nawrocki represents, and what's next for Donald Tusk, who has already called for a confidence vote on his coalition government. Thanks, Maciej, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
What are your main takeaways? You're in Warsaw, you follow the campaign, so what can you tell us about it? What were the main topics also of this election?
It was a very tight result, less than 400,000 votes in difference, so even higher than 5 years ago. And the general take, it was on the general level, it was another one election in which, the political setting is, as we all know, it was the political struggle between law and justice and civic platform, or as you prefer, between Donald Tusk and Jarosław Kaczyński, and this political setting drives Polish politics for 20 years now. So from this sense, it was yet another election of this kind. But I think what was also important, and maybe we will go further into details later in our conversation, that we've seen some serious signs that maybe the erosion has already started of this political setting, and maybe it wasn't the last electoral campaign of this type, but maybe one of the last. That might maybe in future we will judge that those elections were like the beginning of the end of this something what we call in Polish duopole, which means that those two major parties, as I said, drive Polish politics. Regarding your second part of your question, the topics, themes of the campaign, if you have this political setting I just briefly described, it's quite difficult really to name like the most important themes, because it wasn't all about it, as I said, and of course I don't want to say that there was no substantial discussion on some general direction of internal and external politics, but it was an in-depth discussion, so there was like no one or two or three like really the main themes that were decisive on this campaign. It wasn't like that. So and another important feature of this electoral campaign was of course that it was a kind of a plebiscite, referendum, or the review of the on the government performance since 2023. So it wasn't that much about presidential race, because maybe we'll also discuss that the president in Polish political system doesn't have that impactful this role. Like the government is more important, simply put. So some discussion about what, for instance, one candidate proposes or another one is pointless from the point of view that the president has limited capacity, limited prerogatives further to simply implement those reforms and those changes. But it wasn't the first time in Polish history when the presidential campaign served as this kind of a review of the government performance, and it was the case this time as well.
So it was a sort of a midterm, so to say, as you say, as a plebiscite, not really on proposals, but rather on taking the temperature on the coalition government.
Exactly, and as you put it very nicely, because it happened that it's exactly like a in between parliamentary elections. So yeah, and from that point of view, some people say it was a yellow card, but most for the government, but most people, even those who are not opposing the government, are suggesting that it was orange or even red for the government. Yes, so very harsh verdict for the government from that point of view.
And when it comes to participation, has there been particular or remarkable shifts, taking into account the first round and the second round, in relation to the election, the parliamentary election in 2023 that put the current coalition into power? Has there been people that participated less, or groups, or age groups, gender?
There were important shifts, of course. The most important one, I guess, from like a macro perspective, is that over 1 million voters, like 1.4 almost, of voters who supported the current ruling coalition in 2023 decided to vote differently this time. So it was a huge loss for the ruling coalition. The second important shift, I guess, is that young voters decided to vote for like two extremes. For the far right politician Sławomir Mencen, who is one of the leaders of the Confederacja political party, he got almost 4 million of the votes. And then Adrian Zandberg, who represents, let's put it that way, far left party, he managed to get about 1 million votes. So in total, they got the more votes of the younger voters than both leading candidates. So that was also a very important shift.
Was there like a difference, particularly within the young youth vote, when it comes to voting pattern? For instance, in Germany, federal elections, we saw that young boys vote more to the extreme right, and young girls more to the extreme left. So, is this something happening as well in Poland?
Yeah, I think it is also the case in Poland. I don't know now the exact numbers, how big are those fractions of the young voters, but in general, yes, it's the same. And on the more general level, more male voters supported Karol Nawrocki. If I remember correctly, there was a 10% percentage point difference, while more female voters supported Rafał Trzaskowski, but here this difference was smaller, less than 10%.
What can you tell us about the president-elect's profile and the electoral platform? We know that he's a candidate of peace, but much more extreme both on the background, but also on the views. So, what should we know from Brussels and other EU capitals, particularly when it comes to the European Union?
It's a little bit tricky because Karol Nawrocki is a newcomer to politics. You have to put it that way. Previously, he was the head of the Second World War Museum in Gdańsk, and most importantly, he was the head of the Institute of National Remembrance, appointed still by the previous Law and Justice government. So we don't know much, in fact, about his political agenda, about his political platform, about the worldview. Of course, campaign revealed some like hints for us, but it was very visible during the campaign that everything what he says is pre-prepared by the Law and Justice team. So he was well prepared what he should answer for specific set of questions. Yeah, but it didn't reveal that much about his own agenda. So from that point of view, he is a question mark and a bit unknown still a politician. So we will only learn in upcoming weeks and months and years about his political agenda. Having said that, of course, there were some clues regarding some major directions or major packages of political issues. And for instance, after the first round and the second round, there was this famous meeting, two meetings organized by the far-right candidate Sławomir Mencen, which I mentioned before, because there was a discussion who is he going to support in the runoff. So what he figured out was to invite both candidates, Rafał Trzaskowski and Karol Nawrocki, to his office in Toruń, and simply in 1 hour discussion to ask them about different things which are important from the point of view of his voters. And it was framed in that way that his voters can decide upon those answers who, in their opinion, is a better candidate. And beside these conversations, he also asked both of them to sign a kind of a declaration, 8 points declaration, in which there were several issues promoted for years by Sławomir Mencen and Confederation. And actually, Karol Nawrocki signed this declaration while Rafał Trzaskowski refused. And Karol Nawrocki signed and supported all points in those declaration. So from that point of view, he also transferred some points from the Confederation agenda into his own agenda. And I will maybe not list all the points that were in this declaration, but for instance, one of them was that he will refuse to agree that Ukraine can join NATO, or he will be opposing any decision that might lead to increase of the taxes in Poland. Of course, those decisions that are under his competences. So there were a lot of points from the Confederation agenda he eagerly supported. So from that point of view, we might say that he will be representing this not only law and justice platform, which sometimes was very harsh, sometimes were more moderate, but there are some tips suggesting that he will go further right. Also, he was quite outspoken regarding the European Green Deal, of course, opposing it. So he even suggested that he will initiate a national referendum with a question simply to reject, that Poland should reject the European Green Deal. But having said that, I have to come back to this, my initial remark that everything was discussed on a quite, not in-depth level. So from that point of view, again, I would like to highlight that it remains to be seen how he's going to develop his agenda.
That's interesting what you mentioned, because even if it's not really in depth, it still gives a hint of what could mean in a future potential peace confederation coalition government. But before that, because elections are due in 2027, but then yes, right after the election results, Donald Tusk called for a confidence vote on his coalition government. So how do you evaluate this move by Tusk?
I think that it is simply to show that he is in the control of the situation. like a strategic signaling to the voter base, or more broadly to the society, that he has situation under kind of a control. While this is also an instrument for him to, to somehow control their coalition partners in the coalition government, because there will be also a discussion regarding the reshufflement of the government, which is a pretty big one. So there might be also a harsh discussion between coalition partners, how they're gonna continue how they're gonna continue working together in this coalition government. So yeah, I believe that confidence vote will pass. He will pass this test, but this is not critical at this point. I would say the critical is what happens next. Yeah, how eager they will be to pursue big important reforms, to really present and execute their agenda, because that was one of the major issues that contributed to their defeat, in my opinion. Because for 1 year and a half, Donald Tusk was repeating that they cannot work on the full pace, because there is a president who will oppose any serious reform using his veto power. But now the situation for them will not change. So the obvious question is, what now? Are you going to present now those reforms? And if yes, why didn't you that earlier? And also, they have to deal with this situation in which the President Duda decided to be not that confrontational as probably Donald Tusk expected that Andrzej Duda will be, because he finally opposed just 6 bills to the government, and the rest he signed. Yes, so the government is really in the harsh situation right now. They really have to find a strategy in which they can get back the trust of the citizens. As we said at the very beginning, they lost from their own camp, that from the fraction of voters that voted for them in 2023.
You say that the confidence vote will go ahead, so the current coalition should continue. But still, we have this cohabitation, or cohabitation, as they say in France, between a president and a government of a different color. So, for instance, when it comes to key issues like support to Ukraine, how do you think this will play on a day-to-day politics?
Yeah, this is of critical importance. Again, the general remark is that we still don't know much about the next president and his agenda. So this is something that we will learn. On the more positive note, I must say that so far, and especially after 2022, there was a coordination between the government and the president when it comes to the security policy. And when you ask about Ukraine, is exactly about security and defense. Yes, so, and it doesn't matter whether there was a still law and justice government and Andrzej Duda, or it was Andrzej Duda and the current ruling coalition. There was a coordination of efforts. I prefer not to say cooperation, because of course there was a distrust between the government and president, but when it comes to the strategic direction, there was a coordination. So from that point of view, the president, as the commander of the armed forces of Poland, was going in the same direction as the government. And traditionally, I would say, in Poland, it was in that way. So to certain extent, the security aspect, security policy was taken out from like the major internal political struggle. And I really wish that it's gonna remain like that. If Karol Nawrocki decides to go into different direction, it will mean a kind of, a break in this, let's say, political tradition in which when it comes to security policy, the government and the presidents like coordinate efforts and basically go in the same direction. Yes, so it remains to be seen. We will see, but there are like there is a historical evidence that when it comes to security politics and supporting Ukraine, there is a coordination of efforts.
Maciej, thank you very much for this conversation. It's great to have your insights from Warsaw, and we hope to have you again. Let's see how it goes with the confidence votes and in general with Polish politics. But thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
You've listened to the Bell Europe podcast on the results of the Polish presidential election with my guest colleague Maciej Mikulski from our Warsaw office. You can find out more about the aftermath of the Polish election on the show notes and on our website eu.bell.org. Also, we launch a new format, the Bell EU Brief, which cuts through the noise and delivers clear, concise and impactful analysis on pressing EU issues and emerging debates. Written by experts, the Bell EU Brief complements our in-depth e-papers and publications with relevant and timely perspectives. Our latest edition of the Bell EU Brief dives into cable diplomacy and how the EU can navigate subsea cable governance and alliances to secure influence and data. Check it out also on our website. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends and colleagues. Until the next episode, goodbye!